Hello, you multi millennial marvellous maltolic mentions. I'm Ralphie in the bothy, somewhere in the middle of the Irish Sea, on a windy and stormy day in April, and I am going to share with you Ralphie Review 1022 extras. Extra content, extra information, extra perspective, extras relating to whisky and other quality spirit beverages. And I've just reviewed in Ralphie Review 1022 this very tasty, excellent quality, professionally delivered Craigellachie 17-year-old single malt, which I have to say I am seriously enjoying. It has been delivered with integrity, unchill filtered, and the reason I can tell that is because the Scotch mist is appearing in the glass. And if you have a bottle of whisky and it says it's not chill filtered and it's unchill filtered and it doesn't go misty, that you don't get any Scotch mist, it either means that it has been extensively filtered and they're deceiving you, or potentially it's a triple distilled whisky, such as Hazelburn or Benriach triple distilled, Auchentoshan triple distilled, and because of that additional pass through a pot still, it reduces the amount of proteins, oils, and solid state particles that come through in the spirit. Having said that, you get solid particles coming out of the wooden casks, particularly wood oils, which they will impart a certain haze to the whisky. We want that. We're looking for that. That's important. It is a very serious definer of the quality of a modern presentation of whisky. And it really surprises me that so many big distilleries, and even a few small ones, just don't move with the times. But hey ho, what do I know? I'm just a lowly, experienced commentator relating to all things malted and alcoholic. And what I want to talk about in this video is forensics, right? I'd noted down here awareness and demand. But it's more complex than that. When we're buying a bottle of whisky, things change over time to when we buy the next bottle of the same whisky. So back in the 1990s, when I was buying quite a lot of whisky, and some really good quality whisky, basically whisky which was a lot older than the age statement because they were desperately trying to sell whisky because nobody wanted to buy it. My whisky forensics was to go into the specialist whisky shop, see a bottle of something familiar which I knew to be of reliable quality, and to buy it and to have a couple of bottles in the stash. And then I would ask the person behind the counter, as part of my forensics, well, is there something that you recommend that maybe I'm overlooking? And this, frankly, a number of years ago was a very good illustrative example of that. A very fine single malt at a very good price because there was no big demand for it. It wasn't a recognised brand. As a result of which you could get good quality whisky at a slightly cheaper price, and you get the bragging rights of knowing that you're consuming and smelling and tasting something more obscure that other people haven't latched onto yet, and therefore you can talk about it and other people have to say, well, I've not tried that bottle yet, maybe I should buy it. And of course that's the early days of the internet. Well, the 1990s was before the internet, really. Well, a few emails and a little tiny computers, Acorns and Sinclair ZX Spectrums and such like. I remember those computers. That was the very earliest form of AI, because AI, artificial intelligence, is it's just a buzzword, just a superficial buzzword. And in a sense, remove the artificial, but the intelligence that the internet provides means that people are discovering new whiskies a lot faster. And then what you have is the bragging rights. When someone first encounters a new brand, for example, and they're the first to try it, it means that they're the first to talk about it in social media when they upload onto Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. And you always have the picture of the bottle with the glass and an attractive backdrop. That's the standard formula on social media. And then other people are curious, saying, well, hang about, he's tried this, for example, Isle of Harris or Isle of Raasay. I want to try it too. It's a little bit of FOMO, which is fear of missing out, and a little bit of, well, I want a share of that toy. It's part of human instinct, and therefore folk will jump in and pay a significant premium, or spend a lot of resources in travelling and using up fuel, or spend a lot of time in phoning around and checking websites online of smaller specialist retailers who might just happen to have a bottle in stock. And therefore, it becomes a malt chasing exercise. And this is very real, and it's something we're aware of it, but we don't really examine it more closely. We should, because there are many good whiskies out there, but the fact is they're hidden in plain sight, and therefore they get overlooked. Here's a good example. So that when it comes to whisky forensics, people will say, well, I've bought my bottle of Isle of Arden 10-year-old. I've got my bottle of 17-year-old Craigellachie. This was a really good price. This was a dearer price. I've posted on social media how I enjoyed them. What do I go for next? Do I go for one of the new distilleries and see if I get lucky with a particular good cask finish version of port, masala, Madeira, cider, tequila? It becomes a little bit of a money pit, particularly when we make the mistake of trying to judge the whiskey we've just bought too quickly. So we buy a good whiskey, we pour a glass, we nose it, we taste it, we hum and haw about it, we're just not sure about it once we open that bottle. Because we don't quite have the forensics experience of knowing that the first smell and the first taste of a whiskey should be a purely superficial experience, because our subconscious needs time to become familiar before our conscious mind can interpret on the familiarity references of our subconscious. And this is primarily the smell and taste. Meanwhile, we're hyping up subconsciously on what other people are saying about the brand that we've now bought, because it's fashionable in social media. It's exactly the same with handbags, by the way. It's exactly the same with watches. It's exactly the same with influencer drinks and influencer chocolate bars. It's a modern phenomenon, and we need, malt mates, we really need to be fully aware of this. As much as the whisky industry tries to manipulate us with their advertising and with their brand ambassadors and with their under-the-table pours at whisky festivals, they're not the only ones playing that game. We all play that game to a certain extent. Even I do. Because I will, if I really feel fond of a particular brand, if I've really enjoyed the connectivity on it, inevitably it's going to influence my malt marks. And I've got to try, recently in the last year, I've had to bring my malt marks down because, frankly, they were simply too generous. The 85 I gave to the Craigellachie 17 in the old days would have been 89, probably 90. Now I'm being more realistic and more rational about it. It's something that comes with experience, and this is why you yourself never be in a rush. Never be in a rush to keep up with the FOMO and fever of social media commentary. It's there for a purpose. It's a good thing generally. It's amazing what we discover, particularly amongst independent bottlings, where our fellow malt mates and onliners have been prepared to risk it to buy a bottle of rum from an independent bottler like Dramore or like Thompson Brothers, and it's an absolute banger. And it's great value for money. We're all on the lookout for these kinds of bottles, but many of us are fearful of taking the risk. So we take the risk with more familiar bottlings, and by and large, with experience, we navigate our way around it. But as I was saying just a few minutes ago, see with your first pour, you almost disregard it. It's the second pour, the third pour. This is when you're becoming familiar with the dram. And then we present ourselves with another problem. Yes, we do. Excuse me a second. And that problem is over-familiarity. Every time we have another glass from a bottle of whiskey that we've become excited about in the first few tastes, the enjoyment quotient, the enjoyment value starts to slide slightly, and I'll tell you why. Because our senses are now becoming over familiar with what's in the bottle. This is why one of the very important parts and contributors to getting full value out of a bottle of whiskey is that you basically dip into the bottle occasionally. This bottle, I expect to last me for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. Won't it oxidize? Won't it lose a little bit of its energy and flavour? Not really. Not if I'm storing it out of direct sunlight in a cooler, undisturbed storage area. It's going to be just fine. In fact, a little bit of oxidization over time in the bottle is actually going to help me, whiskey dribbles, is going to help me sustain my interest in the bottling itself, because it is in fact changing slightly over time in the bottle. It is oxidizing, and to begin with, the oxidization of whiskey is in fact a very good thing to happen. It helps the whiskey settle down, open up, and deliver its true nature, which is kind of locked up, tense, and a little two-dimensional on first engagement, first contact, and first sip. And this is it's just part of something that comes purely with experience. I've got a lot of experience. That's really what I'm sharing, more than, a great nose and an infinite memory bank of obscure knowledge about distilleries, which frankly isn't really that important. Dates and ownership and times and provenance, it's all very cute. But ultimately, when we pay our money, we're invested in the smell and taste of delivery of a brand and not a lot else. That's the fact of it. And this is something we have to be aware of as well, particularly as we get more drawn into the whiskey scene, is the experts and master blenders who we turn up at their master class. We've paid a premium for the ticket, and their primary job is to entertain us at the same time as selling their brand and upping their whiskey. This is what it's all about. This is why Richard Pattison was very masterful and shocking and surprising and entertaining people when he would pour out a fine old Dalmore, swirl it about the glass, and then throw it across the room. And what is that? It's showmanship. It's nothing else. Master blenders don't. Oh, we've got the glass might not be quite clean enough. Swirl, 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 swish. You're not telling me that master blenders don't actually use clean glasses, are you? That's BS. Pure BS. And he's not alone. There's many recognisable They like to call them superstars now. It's just that's a farcical term. The notable entertainers, engagers, informators, ambassadors, salespeople, marketing hypers. They cover all these bases. One of the most, and then I'm going to conclude my video on this, one of the most important things that we can do to engage with the brand is actually cultivate a very reasoned distance from the rest of the whisky scene, beyond what basically informs us on what is good value for the money we pay, wherever we are and whatever our circumstances. That's really what matters. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a monologue, free-rolling things. It's not one of these sort of videos that you could ever edit. What's most important is just sharing my experience with you, so as you think more about your experience and how you recalibrate your experience to get better value, because getting better value over time is going to sustain your interest in wanting to buy the stuff. See you soon, malt mates.